Let's go through some team grades through the year, and we'll go through different tiers and start with the A tier. It feels like it's pretty obvious Oregon, Indiana, and Penn State all deserve to be in that A tier. Would you
Yeah.
say Illinois at a 9-3 season is also an A team grade for their 2024 season?
Yeah, I would definitely give them an A grade. I think Brett Bielema did an excellent job this season. This is they had a losing season last year. They
Yeah.
didn't. They underachieved a little bit. They had injuries they had to overcome. I think it's a very, very solid year for Illinois. And even in this last game, I didn't even know who this guy is. I didn't see the highlights, but this Aiden Lockery, who had been hurt with a hamstring most of the season, he ran 12 times for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine if they'd have had him all year to go with the other guys they had. Who knows? But 9 wins, yeah, I give them an A tier grade.
Where do you put Ohio State? Because 10-2, obviously a pretty successful season. They're a couple
Yeah,
plays away from being 12-0, but they obviously don't get to that 12-0 mark. They
yeah,
lose by 1 in Eugene, and then the biggest loss that could possibly happen this past week against Michigan.
yeah. I have to put them as a B tier grade. I would not put them as an A tier because, they had the best roster in the league. I mean,
Maybe
they
in the
paid
country.
for it in the country, and they paid for it. They invested in it. Guys came back that had a chance to go play in the NFL, and they lost 2 games. Okay, you can the 1 point loss on the road to Oregon, who's number 1 and has been number 1 since week 6. That's acceptable. That's understandable. Okay, it's a 1 point game. What happened on Saturday at home in Columbus is both inexplainable or inexplicable, and there's just no reason for it. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Michigan because I'm putting Michigan in a B tier grade for that win
Yeah.
because it was such a significant win for them and Sharon Moore in his first year. So, but Ohio State, there was just more expected of them, not just by the outside world, but by the program themselves. And I remember, I'm not saying this got them, but when we first started doing this podcast and we started talking about Ohio State, I said, I don't love hearing this natty or bust, that
Mm.
natty or bust mentality, because I don't know if that allows you to just enjoy and relax and embrace and savor all of it, especially those guys that were coming back for their last season. Were they able to really savor the relationships and just the experiences of playing in college and playing at Ohio State one last time, or was it just so bent on we have to win every game, we have to win every game, we've got to beat Michigan, we got to do this? I don't know. I'm not in the locker room, not around the program, so I don't really know. But anyway, it at the end of the day, it's kind of an underachievement at this point. And the crazy thing is, and Joshua Perry would back us up on this, even if they go all the way and win the whole thing, there will be some Ohio State people that will not be thrilled with the season.
Yeah, they'll consider this season a failure even as national champion. So you mentioned that Ohio State, Michigan would be B tier. I agree with you on the Wolverines. To get 7-5 with the quarterback issues they
Right.
had, you have to at least be somewhat excited for what this win can now do to propel you forward with an elite quarterback prospect coming in. Iowa 8-4 feels like a B tier for
Yep.
them. Not
Yep.
what we know they're capable of. Minnesota 7-5. Where do you put teams like a Washington, a Nebraska, a Rutgers? They're teams
Yeah.
that are bowl eligible, but not necessarily upper echelon.
Yeah, you know what? I would put Rutgers as a B tier. Of those teams you named, Rutgers is the one that I would put up there, like next to Minnesota,
Mm,
because at one point, because of injuries and whatnot, Rutgers was on a 4-game losing skid, and just the
true.
fact that Greg Schiano was able to keep that team together and not let that thing get disjointed and go south, and then come back and finish strong and win not just 6 to get bowl eligible, but to win 7. So I think that was a good finish for Rutgers, and Kyle Monangai, one of the best players in the Big Ten, one of the best backs in the Big Ten, and there were 4 or 5 really really talented running backs in the league this year, and he certainly was one of them.
Where would you put USC, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and UCLA? You've got one team that's bowl eligible, that's USC, but there were a lot more expectation than just winning
Right.
6 games, and the other three mentioned all 5-7 to finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, I would put all those on the C tier. USC would kind of be teetering between a D plus, C minus almost, just
Yeah.
because I think of all those teams, they were clearly the most talented team.
Yep.
And I think the expectations, deservedly so, were and should have been higher for USC. And so to finish 6-6, which is just like, average, like kissing your sisters, it's like a tie. I mean, they should have been better than that, right? They should have been better than 6-6 with the talent they had on their roster.
No doubt. And the last couple teams, Northwestern 4-8, Maryland 4-8, and Purdue, as mentioned now, without Ryan Walters moving forward, finishes 1-11 on the season.
Yeah, well, look, I wouldn't put all three of those together either. I would put Northwestern and Maryland together as four-win teams as the D tier, and then I'd have to create an F tier for Purdue because,
Yeah.
again, 1-11 and their worst performance of the season. They fire their offensive coordinator midway through. They have their worst offensive and defensive performance of the season in their rivalry game at the end. So the wheels really came off of this program at some point in the season, and they never ever recovered.
No, for a program that just a couple years ago was in the Big Ten championship game.
That's right.
And so another one that'll be very interesting to see how they develop everything into the offseason now and look for the new head coach.
The other thing it makes you realize, and again, this is not a dig against Ryan Walters, but it also makes you realize and appreciate how good of a football coach Jeff Brom was and is. He did a great job there. The only reason he left, I don't think he didn't want to get out of Purdue. He left because his alma mater gave him an opportunity to go to Louisville, and he's done a really good job at Louisville as well. So he's an excellent football coach.
Absolutely. Well said.